my friends. This is Brian, the Speaker for the Dead, coming to you today with a new topic for discussion that was brought about by some comments that were made once again on my channel's videos. And this is an edited video. The intro that I originally did was over 10 minutes long, seemed overly wordy, so I cut that out, came back, re-recorded a new intro for this, just so that I can I'm going to use that intro, but for something else, because it's important, but it made this video over 30 minutes long, and I don't want that to be the case. I need to try and trim some of this down. It's not that it's not important, it's not that I'm just rambling, but it is something that maybe can be discussed at a later time. So we'll go back and change that. So I wanted you guys to get into this video, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's talk about what makes a great movie or TV show. I wanted to go over some basic categories that I think make a great TV show, and I want to talk about each one of them for a few minutes. So you've got to start out with a great story / script. If you've got an amazing story, let's just use some IPs that are old school. Lord of the Rings, Star Wars. One was from literature. One was a film idea that came from George Lucas.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
Let's think about another. Star Trek started as a television show, and then moved into the film industry and still continued to do stuff in TV. You've got the Aliens series. It was it was a movie that somebody decided to make, and it spawned a series. So you have to have a great story. But if you can't get that story into a script, which is to alter it from its original format, whether it was just an idea or it was a screenplay originally or whatever, but if you have that great idea, you have that great story, but you can't translate it into like something that's going to jump off the page and onto the screen and make people really just go, wow, well, you've kind of set yourself up for failure. So that's where most things I see are falling down today, is that the scripts aren't being written so that they're going to be successful. They're being written by either a group of people who have an agenda, or they're being written by a group of people who don't care about what it is they're doing. They're just creating product. I mean, that would be no different than somebody who went to a potato processing plant and spent all day changing potatoes into potato chips or into instant mashed potatoes. They're not going to care about like the I mean, it's just a generic product that's being like just being stamped out. Nobody's going to care. And see, that's what I feel like's happened to modern cinema. It's been created in a factory type setting instead of creatives and visionaries and people with great grand ideas writing things down and then translating that written, because everything starts as written. I mean, no matter what it is, no matter whether it's a film, a TV show, a book series, it's all written down before it ever becomes pictures, before it ever gets translated into TV or cinema or whatever. Before it ever hits a screen, it was written on paper, or maybe typed in a typewriter, or put on a computer, whatever. It's a written medium. So you have to have those elements. You have to have a great story, and then you have to be able to convert that story into a great script.
Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it. It began with the forging of the great rings.
You have to, and if you don't have either one of those things, your project is probably going to fail. You're probably not going to get the response and the what you need out of it. Now, with just a regular generic idea that becomes a movie, there's a lot of things that can go right or wrong. But the problem with most times the written part of this, the script writing, is in modern movie making, when they try and adapt a literature or a book series or a poem that gets expanded into a great idea that becomes a film or whatever it is, they lose, or they do not pay attention to the source material. And a lot of people are like, I have had comments that saying, oh, you wanted a book in movie form. And it's like, no, but yeah, I guess in a way, if you're going to steal somebody else's idea, steal is a harsh word, maybe borrow somebody else's idea, you probably should stay true to that idea. You should probably try and stick to what that original person created. If it's not your creation, if you didn't create this thing all of yourself, if you're not Ridley Scott who created Aliens, or you're not, whoever else, whatever movie director came up with a script or found a script that they like, and then they took it and adapted it into a movie and stuff, and then that's the first time we saw it. It's just, if you're doing something of somebody else's, you owe it to them to stay true to the overall story and what they intended to get across. It is not an opportunity for you to go and rewrite somebody else's work, and if that's what you do, then you should call it something different. You should not try and piggyback on their ideas. So you've got to have something great written first. Then you've got to have a good director. A good director, I think, can make or break a picture. Now, mediocre directors sometimes manage to hit it big, and they'll do a decent job, and something good comes out of it. First-time director is just like boom, and he creates the greatest movie ever and stuff, and then he goes on to become a great director. But you have to be a great director even in embryo. You can't just be some schmo who walks off the street. I doubt I could do it. As much as I criticize what they do, I think I would have a hard time doing it until I really learned the craft. But I'm not going to pretend I'm something that I'm not, which unfortunately some directors do. But great directors are able to translate the spoken word and to find scripts and script writers who can make ideas great, that can make them jump off the page so that when you bring them to the screen, they make sense. A great director is just that, directing, finding the right people to fill in the roles, to do what needs to be done to make this picture, to bring this IP to life, or to bring this brand new, never before seen idea to life. Or if you're remaking old ideas and you're borrowing from this and that and this and that, like George Lucas did, and you make something completely new from all of these various elements. That's what made George Lucas great. He was able to do that. He was able to kind of borrow from different things to create something completely new and different. And you have to have a great director. You have to. Even if it's his first picture, he's got to be a great director in embryo waiting to come out. Otherwise, yeah, you're probably not going to have a good movie. The next is you've got to have a great cast. And now, I don't mean well-known actors that have been in everything and big names and splashy colors and red carpet treatment. I'm talking about people who, one, work together. They are great actors. They fit the roles that they're being cast in. They are not that they're being picked because they're great actors. If you're picking them for any other reason, you might not get the performance you were hoping for. It's just, I remember there's a line in the movie The Rocketeer, which is just fantastic to me. The director, this girl keeps screwing up this line, "What did you drink of my lips as deeply?" And she keeps like just deadpanning it and like completely saying this line wrong over and over and over again. And the director finally gets up and he goes, "Sweetheart," and it's because it's his niece who's got this role. And that's how she got the role. She didn't get it because she was good. She got it because she was the director's niece, which goes back to my point of pick an actor for the right reason. And he goes to her and he says, "Sweetie, I need you to act, but don't act like you're acting." And she's like, "Oh." It's fantastic. Rocketeer, a great movie, back when Disney was doing some really great stuff. Also, I got told in another comment today that if I use the words if I make a point and then I say, like that, apparently that means I'm lying. Anyone want to figure that out for me? Please leave me a comment in this video because I'd love to figure out the logic on that. I just wrote this confused person back and went, "I think there's something wrong with you." Which is sad. Anyway, so you've got to have that great cast. You've got to have somebody who understands what you're looking for, who understands that you're not picking this for diversity and inclusion, and you're not trying to rewrite history, and you're not trying to be a part of the message, and you're not trying to None of that. Truly, truly great films. Great films. The ones that have stood the test of times are the ones who were cast based on historical norms of the time. They were based on true stories, based on reality, or based on great stories, based scripts, and the characters were picked because they could do the job. The actors got chosen because they were the right person at the right time for that job. And they didn't get picked for anything else. They got picked because they were the best, not because of any other reason. And if that's what happens, that's another thing. At any one of these steps, during any one of these processes that I'm talking about, a movie can go terribly, terribly wrong. And a great movie can be knocked down to a substandard movie or an absolutely, truly horrible movie because any of these steps are missed, or these things are corrupted, or all of them are moderately corrupted. It's a sliding scale for each one of these things. But if you don't start out with good stuff, I mean, trash in, trash out. That's basically what happens. So the second to the last one is great effects. Now, this has been where I think Hollywood has gotten mixed up in the last, I don't know, even maybe 50 years. Maybe because as the special effects got better, as CGI came in, as all of these things started to get bigger, people started writing movies based on special effects. Oh, this is going to be a great special effects. Or they read a script and they thought, oh, we can make that look really great. And sometimes like all of the emphasis for a film gets bottled down into what's going to make the biggest explosion. And I remember there's been many times I've walked out of the theater and thought, well, the effects in that movie were awesome. The rest of it sucked. But I mean, the effects were good. And that's how I know I've just watched a truly terrible film. If the only thing I can say is that the effects were good, once again, they took that sliding scale and they slid all of the other categories way back and maxed out that CGI scale and ruined their film because they didn't have time for the story, because they were so busy putting in effect shot after effect shot after effect shot. The story suffered, the acting suffered, the characters weren't fully fleshed out because we needed 10 more minutes for an explosion. And so the effects are... they're like the sprinkles on ice cream. Ice cream is great all by itself, but the sprinkles come in there and they give it definition and they make it better and add a little bit of a different flavor. And that's what special effects are to me. They're the things that go in there and they fill in the gaps. They make it better. They take everything that's good and they make it that much better. That's what special effects are. Special effects are not supposed to be the main focus of the show. They're supposed to be something that helps you tell your story and sucks people in and opens up the world and tries to show people what they might have seen in their imagination. Now, they're never going to get it 100% right. Of course they're not. They're not in each one of our heads, and I don't expect them to. I expect them to try and at least get it close to the way it was described in whatever it was that they were looking to do. If it's a science fiction special effects movie, I want to know that they're actually in space. I want to understand that the space shots are cool. They're space shots, and that it's realistic. I love movies like that. That they may not be super high budget, but they put in just the right amount in the right amount of effects that they take a moderately good film and they make it amazing because they use the effects in just the right way to give it that extra bit of flavor. That's what effects are to me. They're not the point of the movie. They're just the icing on the ice cream, the cake, the whatever sweet thing you're eating. So the last thing that I would say you have to have for a great film is editing. You have to have good editors because they go out and they shoot all of these reams of films based on storyboarding, or well, they used to do it this way. They do it on storyboarding and all of these things, and they're filming all of these things in different sequences at different times, and then they're not doing it chronologically, and they're just they got actors and they're doing different things in different continents and different places with different crews, and it takes a really masterful person to go back to those original ideas, take all those shots from all those different places, and then to lay them out and to pattern them out and to figure out, okay, this is what we need to keep, this is what we need to get rid of. This doesn't really move the story along. It's great. It was in the book, but if we spend too much time on that, it's gonna slow the movie down. It's gonna get dialogue heavy, and there's gonna be problems. And I mean, it really takes a great editor to make sure that when the film comes out, you get the best possible version. Now, usually the director's directly involved in that, but sometimes not. Sometimes it's another person entirely who's kind of working with the director, but they're the one editing it. And it really matters. That's the final step that makes that movie what it is. And like I said, any one of those things goes wrong, or each one of those things goes wrong in just enough of a way, and something that could have been truly great gets ruined. See, I think Dune Part 2 could have been a stellar, fantastic movie because it had all the elements. It had a good director. From everything I know, I'm not a Villeneuve fan, but I mean he seems to do pretty good work. I liked Arrival. I mean there's some things that he's done. I pretty well liked the first Dune Part 1. It wasn't great, but it was good. It was good, and especially by comparison to the second one. But it had a great. I mean, but its script was flawed because it focused too much on the Bene Gesserits. It like focused too much on Chani, the second film. They changed characters, they changed character motivations, they changed cultural bases. They changed too many things. So the script was flawed from the very beginning for Part 2. The good director, but he was the one driving this vision, and so he took the problems from the script and just kind of accentuated those. It was a great cast. I liked the cast. This was a good cast. There were some unknowns. There were some knowns. I didn't have really any great problems with the cast. I felt like Thufir Howard's character was kind of miscast, and he didn't really get used like he should have in the film. But I mean, I'm just using that. I know I've been talking about Dune 2 a lot, but it's just a good representation of what happens if some of these things go wrong. Now, the special effects, for Dune Part 2, I thought were fantastic. I thought they were very realistic. It did not feel fake. It did not feel phony. It did not feel too much CGI. It was a very bland palette that he had to work with because he's on a sand planet. There's only so many colors on a sand planet. A lot of people were like, I didn't like the effects. It was bland and boring. It's just like, I thought they were really good for what they were. But they missed some things, like they didn't do anything with the Spacing Guild and stuff, like I said in my other videos. But I mean, and then the editor. I mean, this edit of the film was okay, but like me personally, they should have left about half of the stuff with Chani on the editor's room floor because that went terribly wrong, especially towards the end. So I mean, the editing seemed to be okay, but the problem was, so the effects and the editing was good, but the first three, yeah, it's where everything went wrong. And so it took a movie that was, I mean, dude, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen by a long shot. But it took a film that is like, okay, it's all right. I probably won't ever watch it again, but it was okay. And instead of being, oh my gosh, did you see that movie? That was the best freaking movie. I mean, that just blows everything else. I mean, do you understand that it had that potential? It really did. And it fell short because it didn't master those categories. Now, I'm sure there's lots of other categories that people could include. But to me, those are the major ones. Those are the ones you've got to get right. Those are the ones you've got to hit. And if you don't hit those, nothing else matters. Nothing. Everything else falls apart. One of those things can be moderate and everything else can be great and you'll still get a good film. But for something to be truly great, to be epic, to last the test of time, to be the Planet of the Apes, which has launched, unfortunately, 1,000 Planet of the Apes films, which I wish they would stop because I hate those films, but that's just a personal thing. But, I mean, Charlton Heston and that original movie spawned a bazillion Planet of the Apes movies. And, people still talk about that. The people still quote Soylent Green. Soylent Green is people! Because of how good Charlton Heston was and because the overall theme of the film wasn't actually that fantastic. But Moses, the Ten Commandments, Cecil B. DeMille knew how to do this stuff. He knew how to get these elements and to make them right, to get it right. And that's what it takes. It takes somebody who's directing this and writing this and everybody to work together to make a great film. Now, as I said, I'm no expert, but I am a thinker. And I have studied this stuff in some detail over the course of my life. I watch TV and films all the time, and I know what works and I know what doesn't. And you know how I know I'm right? Because 9 times out of 10, if I hate a movie, it doesn't do well at the box office. Now, Dune 2 is doing really well. Ghostbusters 2 or 7, whatever we're on, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is doing really well. But it's just because we've been so starved for entertainment that these moderately okay films are being seen as horrendous, amazing triumphs, and people are just desperate to like anything. And then when somebody like me comes out and says, okay, this is not the masterpiece you think it is, I get told I'm an incel, I hate women, and that I am a miserable cunt. Literal words. That was said to me in one of the comments. I'm just a miserable cunt. I'm not sure how a man can be called that, but okay. All right. It's a British thing. Maybe it's a British person. They like calling people cunts. But seriously, I'm none of those things. I'm just a realist. I'm just somebody who's pointing out, or you're just a miserable curmudgeon. No, I'm actually a pretty happy guy. I like things and I like talking. Anybody who actually knows me knows I'm a happy person. One of my favorite things to do is laugh. Just look at the video, the live stream that we did with my kids the other night on Sunday night about Ghostbusters. We sat here and laughed and giggled and had fun the whole time. Miserable people don't do that. Just saying. Anyway, I hope this was informative to you guys. I hope that you guys will comment and let me know what you guys think. Am I right? Did I miss some things? What do you think are the key elements that make a great film? Like I said, if you think I missed anything, go ahead and stick it in there. But to me, these are the major categories that Hollywood needs to focus on. They need to stop worrying about everything else and start focusing on the real things that make these categories important. Stop with the diversity, equity. Hire the right people who can do the job the best, and I don't care what color they are. I don't care what sexuality they are. Can they act? Can they do a good job in that role? Fantastic. Hire them. Hire them. But if they can't do it, don't pick them just because they checked a couple of other boxes. That's always going to go wrong. It's always going to go wrong with screenwriters, directors, and anything else. Anytime you pick somebody because of something other than their ability, their creative ability, that actually fill the role that actually needs to be filled, well, guess what? Don't be surprised when your $1 billion film fails to make its $1 billion back. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, and subscribe, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye now.